in our community, new potential, you know, but I definitely don't stand here as some authority, you know, on the subject, you know, and I really know that y'all here probably have so much more for me to learn from, you know, so I want to have more of a conversation than a lecture, you know, if that's all right with y'all. But I'll say my angle, and my comrade M1 is going to definitely get to the business. You know, so my 2 cents in the conversation, I wanted to focus on health because, you know, the so-called green movement that's led by the white left, pretty much, you know, they focus on things that I feel is abstract in a lot of ways to our community. And, you know, the green movement, as far as black people, they leave out the everyday issues, you know. Going green ain't nothing new for our community. You know, it's our natural culture from Africa. It's how we survived slavery. It's how we survived sharecropping. It's how we survived with the high light bill. Turn the light off, you ain't using it. You know what I'm saying? You know, that's going green. That's something new to them. But, you know, that's common sense for us. You know, but I want to say what I think is missing from the green movement is 2 things. You know, when you talk about going green in a poor community, in a economically poor community, you know, you can't be talking about going green without talking about getting green. You know, the economic development. You know, a lot of times we dealing with capitalism. You know, it's hard for us to figure out how to make green, how to develop business without copying the oppressor's model, you know, pimping people. And so a lot of times we don't focus on the business, the finance, we focus on the ideology, and we end up in a position with great ideas and no resources. You know what I'm saying? So I think when we start in a black community, when we talking about going green, first and foremost, we talking about empowering ourselves economically so that we can be sustainable, as they say, right? In our own movements, you know. There's nothing wrong with creating business to fund our agenda. You know, in fact, you know, that's independence. Anything else is a dependency, you know, and we're going to be asking the people who don't care about our community to fix our problems, you know. I know I ain't telling you nothing you don't know, but I'm just reiterating it because we need people to invest in business models and finances as a priority, you know, and not like we'll get to that back burner, you know, kind of thing. And I say that in the most humblest way, you know, with integrity to that. There's so many more things more important than money, you know what I mean? But it's just real, you know, and y'all know how it is. Anything that we want to develop and do, it always comes down to where we're going to get the funds from, you know. So that's one point I wanted to make about the green movement. The second thing I wanted to make is the greens in our diet. You know, and I shouldn't say diet because we don't diet, we're trying to live it. You know? But, you know, the greens, the concept of nutrition, health, and fitness, you know, I never really see the green movement addressing that. And the black community is #1 in heart disease. You know what I mean? #1 in diabetes, asthma, allergies, you know, all these things related to not only the pollution in the environment, right, not only the stress that we under, but the actual food and the lifestyle as this is what I call a sad diet, the standard American diet, you know. So when we talk about going green, we talking about upping the green intake in our diet, you know, in our eating habits, and resistant, you know, the convenience food, the fast death food, the fast food. You know, really reclaiming our ancient culture. You know, we ain't got to go back in the past, but the truth of the matter is we already had this shit on lock. We already had it figured out. We had the science, you know, and how we got in the position we in today is that they robbed us of that science. They robbed us in the confidence, you know, and the access to that information. So, you know, diet, economic development is angles that I feel like has been missing from the green movement agenda led by white folks. And I think it's the only way it's going to be relevant to our community is to put that in the forefront, you know. A little bit about me. I definitely grew up. I'm from Tallahassee, Florida, you know, born and raised. I moved to New York when I was in my 20s. But, so I'm from the South. I'm from the neck bones and bacon and, you know what I mean? Like, eat whatever, Kool-Aid with this much sugar. You know, that was my lifestyle. You know, then when I got old enough, you know, I started sipping out the Crown Royal bag and blowing weed and blunts and, you know, 99-cent Whoppers and whatever I can afford, you know, robbing a pizza man, whatever. And just to be 100 with it, when I was 20 years old, I woke up one morning, went to step down out of my bed to use the bathroom, fell on my face, right? I looked down, my ankle was swollen up, like a grapefruit or something. And I thought maybe I must have got bit by a spider or something, right? And long story short, doctor says I had gout, right? And you know that where I'm from, you know, gout's supposed to be an elder condition, after a long life of destroying your body. You know, I'm going so hard at 20. I look down and that's what's in my leg. So I did a self-check. The doctor said, "Don't worry about it. You know, give you a couple pills. You know what I mean? Keep doing what you're doing. Take these, clear it up. You'll be all right, right?" And you know, sometimes the worst situations have the best outcomes, though, because it put me on a crossroad, you know, and I really truly had to rely on our culture. I was living in Brooklyn at the time, in a Rasta community. My wife was a vegan and studying to be a holistic health counselor at the time. And she said, you know, we ain't got to get on the drugs and all that, but what you got to do is, you know, boom, boom, boom. And so she laid it out for me. Then I said, well, if I could get my leg back, you know, in operation, you know, I want to use it, you know. So I signed up for a Kung Fu class, right? About 6 years later, I'm breaking a board with my foot, that same foot that was swollen up. I'm a vegan. I'm working out 6 days a week, you know what I mean? And now I got a son who's 8, who was born vegan, in my hands, not in a hospital, you know. And so I give thanks, and I know that, you know, our culture got the answers to heal ourselves in my own life, you know. I know that I know it's not a joke. I ain't got no endorsement. Nobody ain't paying me to promote no healthy gadgets and all that. You know, it's just real, and I care about our people. You know, my mom's got diabetes. She lived with me. You know, my mother-in-law lived with me. She got multiple sclerosis. You know what I mean? We dealing with it every day, and it's our addiction and our lack of discipline and our lack of knowledge, you know, that cause us to suffer you know, from these things. So I'm on a mission. I'm on a worldwide mission to be a vessel, a vehicle to motivate, hopefully, our people, if I can, we're developing a program called RBG Fit Club.